I was not prepared for this roller coaster ride today, which is surprising considering how the season's gone. Although we still have one more stop on this journey before we can finally get off and start preparing for next year. We'll talk about this game and more next.
Yo, it's time to grind. With Brian on the mic, content is one of a kind. Now, welcome to my show, the BS Report, where we let the truth flow. We're breaking down the stories, shining light on the games. No fake news here, just hot takes blowing flames. The BS Report, yeah, we're keeping it tight. Bringing you the news, making it ignite. Tune in, turn it up, feel the heat rise. With Brian in the house, our takes won't be compromised. From the latest news to the hottest debates, in the BS Report, we're setting the stakes. So come along, join the ride, where Brian and his subscribers are full of Niner pride. Yo.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the BS Report. I am your host, Brian. Now, I hardly even know where to begin when it comes to what I've seen out there today. Um, the first half was like almost like the Bears game, but better because it was the Lions. And it's like, where in the world? Kyle was even more creative than he was against the Bears. And I mean, it was like he was doing his best to do his very best Ben Johnson impression. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, where in the hell was this all year long? Why couldn't he be incorporating all these things, all these different looks and all these different plays all season? It was just completely blowing my mind that he was able to pull that out in this game. It was like he had been listening to all the rumors and he had been listening to all the comments and he was, in his mentions and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, damn, where was this the whole season? And then, Purdy was playing lights out. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Ricky Pearsall. And, I have been hearing people say, Pearsall's getting open, Pearsall's getting open. Purdy's not looking his way. And then he comes out this game and it's like, well, shit, maybe that's true. Maybe Pearsall has been getting open this whole time. And Purdy just hasn't been going that direction with the ball. And I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, we limited Debo's touches and gave those to Ricky. And to me, it's like, what if we would have been doing that this whole second half of the season? You know, he was throwing the ball to Garendo. What if he had been doing that? Even before McCaffrey came back, when Jordan Mason was the primary back, what if he would have used Garendo in that way? He was featuring Kittle, which surprised me because, truthfully, I thought he was going to keep Kittle in primarily the whole game and use him as an extra lineman to help out on the left side. But he featured him. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, this is the Kyle that I remember. This is the Kyle that I can get behind. And it makes it even more frustrating, though, when you see that because it's there. And it's like, is his stubborn ass just not doing this because he hears everybody calling for it? It makes it so much more irritating and frustrating. And if he's really that stubborn, if he's really that just pig-headed to where he can't do something because it's suggested by other people, he has to be spiteful, then I'm sorry. That is not the type of guy that we need coaching this team. He's got to go. I don't feel like Purdy should have been playing in this game. And, I'm not one that believes that Purdy should be paid top of the market money. But I certainly hope that he's not hurt. Seriously. I hope that he's healthy enough to play next week, but doesn't. Because there was no reason for him to be hurt right now. There was no reason for him to play. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm a 49ers fan. So when we came out the way we did and played the way we played in the first half, I was pumped. And it was like, draft pick be damned. I want to win this game. I want to go out this way. This is the way I want the season to end. by beating the Lions. Who cares what happens next week against the Cardinals? If we can do this against the Lions, that's enough. Because then, you know, in my mind, we would have went out on a high note. But you know, truth be told, probably would have been better just to play the backups. Even if it was Dobb, I would have preferred to see Mordecai. But even if it was just playing Josh Dobbs, I mean, at least Purdy wouldn't be hurt. You know, the hit that Bosa took in the head was scary. You know, he should have went out then and stayed out. He had a great game, but for what? You know, I hear, Kyle said a couple of weeks ago, these guys get 17 game checks. Okay, well, they got 17 game checks last season, and they didn't play week 18. So that makes no sense. He has this pattern of being spiteful. He has this pattern of everybody says I should do this, so I'm going to do that. And it's, man, if that is truly how he really is, he needs to go. You know, and it makes it tough because every now and then he'll pull out a half like he pulled out today. And you think to yourself, well, if that's the Kyle we're going to get, then, maybe we don't need to let him go. But then then Kyle does Kyle stuff. And it's just like, well, maybe some things aren't going to change. We can't win a close game in the fourth quarter. We can't. And I'm going to get to Brock in a minute. But right now I'm on Kyle, and for whatever reason, we just can't win a close game in the fourth quarter. And it used to be Kyle could go in at halftime and make certain adjustments, and we would start games a little bit slow in the past and come out in the second half. And now it's like this season, it's like we start out slow and we end slow. Yeah, we move the ball up and down the field, but we don't score. And it's like, what is going on with this guy? And I'm sorry, like, everybody can say what they want to say about Kyle and John, and they're in lockstep. They're two peas in a pod. No, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Cracks are starting to show in this thing. You listen to John's comments on the radio this week, and then you watch John in that press box. Yeah, this season is unraveling at a rapid pace right now. And we only have one more week left to go in this season. And I'll tell you one thing. If Kyle and the 49ers come out next week against the Cardinals, regardless of who plays, and get mollywopped, get embarrassed, and Kyle does Kyle things, I think there might be a shouting match in the hallway. I think John is at his wit's end with what's going on. And I can't say that I blame him, because it honestly seems like so much of this is stubbornness by Kyle Shanahan. So much of this seems like it could have been avoided if he was just willing to do the things that a coach does and adjust. But he's been so unwilling to do that. He'll adjust, but the opposite of what he's being called to do, because he's being called to do that. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that Kyle is the guy to lead this team forward anymore. I just don't. And it's not like I'm thinking that Kyle blew this game. I don't think he did. I think Jake Moody and Brock Purdy blew this game. But it doesn't matter, because this game didn't matter. We could have won the game, and honestly, I don't think it would have changed my opinion. And I've been, for the last couple of weeks, when I first started this channel, the first video I ever did was saying that we need to get rid of Kyle. And then since then, it's not that my opinion has changed, but I've pulled back on expressing that for the simple fact that it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. So it seemed like a pointless endeavor to come on here and talk about that. It seemed pointless to talk about needing to move on from him, because all signs pointed to the fact that we wouldn't. So it was like, okay, if that's not going to happen, What's the best direction to go with him? And, you know, after this week and listening to comments and different reports and seeing the way that John was reacting in the press booth today and just watching the overall decision making of Kyle Shanahan. And I'm not even talking about just game decisions. I'm talking about organizational decisions. Who's playing, who's not playing, um, and why. And then on top of that, seeing the production that guys we've been calling for to get more touches, the production that they were putting up, guys like Ricky Pearsall, featuring guys like George Kittle, um, in inserting guys like Isaac Guerrero more, even before the injuries happened, and seeing what happens once you do these things, and knowing that he could have been doing this all along, but he didn't. And you can't tell me that if guys like me and people like you can sit out here and be like, they should be doing this, that Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, doesn't know the same damn thing. He was making a conscious effort not to do those things. And I truly believe it was to the detriment of the team. I don't believe that it was because he thought it was the right way to go. I fully believe he did it because he didn't want to give certain guys credit for saying it. And I honestly going to go out in here and say this. I really truly believe one of the guys that he really truly mostly is spiteful to is Grant Cohn. There's no doubt in my mind that he is that petty. And I'm sorry, someone who is that petty doesn't deserve to be a coach in this league, especially of this team. Now, I'm not saying that if the Niners moved on from Shanahan, that nobody would hire him because he's petty. No, Kyle would have a job. His phone would be ringing before he walked out of the building. There's no doubt about that. And I'm fine with that. For those people who say that we shouldn't get rid of Kyle because he'd have a job in 5 minutes, okay, so someone else can have that problem. And I'm just at the point now. I mean, I've been at the point, but I'm at the point where I'm ready to express it again. I don't believe that Kyle should continue as the coach of this team. I just don't. I think that this season could have gone a lot better. A lot better. If Kyle was more of a leader. If Kyle was more of a grown-up, an adult, basically. Um, and I think that his pettiness, his spitefulness, his childness cost this team this season. And I'm sorry, but I'm ready for a new direction, a new voice on this team. And I think it's time. I think it's time for everybody to see the cracks that are happening here. And you know what? When you start to get cracks in a foundation, it's not long before the house around it starts to fall apart. So they can go into next season and they can try to right the ship, but you can't tell me that John Lynch hasn't lost faith in Kyle Shanahan. You can't tell me that the Yorks have not lost faith in Kyle Shanahan. You can't tell me that the players haven't started to lose faith in Kyle Shanahan. And so he can go into the offseason and he can talk a big game and he can go into training camp and he can talk a big game. But once the season kicks off, the first time that the train starts to slip off the rails a little bit, you watch how fast it falls apart. He's going to go into next season with basically zero margin for error. Now, me personally, I don't think that's a recipe for a successful season. You have bumps in the road on any season. No matter how good or bad your team is, you're going to have highs and lows. So the first sign of trouble, the first time you hit the lows, if you have people abandoning ship and jumping overboard, that's going to make for a pretty shitty season. Why would you want to go into a season with a coach like that? because that's exactly what's going to happen as soon as stuff starts to go downhill. The first time Kyle makes a stupid decision, the first time he does a Kyleism, stuff's going to start to go sideways. People are going to start to look at him funny. There's going to start to be chatters in the front office. There's going to start to be leaks to the media. There's going to start to be things, and the whole season's going to fall apart. So let's just avoid all that shit from happening next year, because I'm calling it right now. I'm saying it right now. If we bring Kyle back, you can already see the cracks forming now. And they may try to smooth it all over. They might try to put a skim coat over top of it. Guess what? The cracks are still underneath. And it doesn't take much to crack through that skim coat. And I'm calling it right now. The first sign of adversity next year, watch this fall apart with him. So let's just avoid that and move on from it now. That's my opinion. Now, on to a harder topic, which is Brock Purdy. Man, I don't know how many times I got to say this. I've made multiple videos of this. We cannot pay him top of the market money. We cannot do it. I don't even see the point in paying him $40 million a year, $35 million a year. Why? Why? Because at the end of the day, when the game is on the line, every opportunity that he gets to go down and win it, he blows it. He doesn't come through. Even when he has the opportunity with a wide open player like Pearsall today, he had 10 yards of separation? He doesn't have the arm to get it there. He doesn't. Unless he's hitting guys in stride on short crossers over the middle, and they're breaking tackles and making house calls, we don't have explosive play possibilities on this team because he doesn't have the arm to get it there. I watched the Atlanta Falcons Washington Commanders game this weekend, and I seen both Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix rifle balls into the end zone that Brock Purdy couldn't do on his best day. Those were potential game-winning throws. It's not like Purdy has that ability in him to put the team on his back and carry them down. He just doesn't have that. If everything is going perfect, if everything is going right, and we build a big lead, yeah, Purdy can get it done. And no, he can put up these gaudy numbers like he did today. He can put up 370 some odd yards and 3 touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown, and it looks good. But when you actually watch the game, it's not as impressive as the stats look. It's just not. Those are all before it counts. I seen Grant put on X today that Purdy has 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in the second half this season. I think it's 8 and 10 now, actually. That's not winning football. And to me, that's what Brock is proving to be. Since the Baltimore game last year until now, that's who he's proven to be. And so my opinion is, if you're not getting better, you're not getting worse. There is no staying the same. So what really is the point to move forward with Brock Purdy? Because are we winning the Super Bowl next season? We are not. So wouldn't it be more prudent? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to get another quarterback in here and see if we can hit lightning in a bottle? Somebody that has the physical upside that maybe needs coached up a little bit. Now, can Shanahan do that? Who knows? Probably not. But at this point, like we know what we have with Shanahan, we also know what we have with Brock. Excuse me. Jesse says that he likes 3 full years before he knows what a quarterback is. Jesse Naylor, Last Second Sports. Now, before he makes his decision on a quarterback. And under most circumstances, I would say I probably agree with that. Um, and I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think I seen on one of his shows the other day, he said that he still would like 3 full years on Purdy, but he has a pretty good idea of what Purdy is. I think we all do, to be honest with you. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what Purdy is. And you got two different sample sizes of him. You got the first part of his career from the first Miami game until the Baltimore game, and then you got from the Baltimore game till now. I think that what Purdy is a little bit more towards the now than it is towards the then. I don't believe that that's who Purdy was. The difference is that at that particular point in Purdy's career, there was no pressure. He was playing on house money that whole time. That whole time. The NFL didn't really know a lot about him at the time. Defenses didn't know how to play him at the time. But guess what? Defenses adjusted and he can't. That's what happened. Baltimore put the blueprint out there. And so all the other defenses followed suit and adjusted, and Purdy can't. He just can't. He doesn't have the arm. It's not that he doesn't have the intelligence. He does. Brock Purdy is more than smart enough to be an elite quarterback. He doesn't have the physical traits to do it. See, and Brock's biggest, I guess his biggest obstacle is the fact that he is smart enough to know what he needs to do. But his body isn't capable of doing it. But he thinks it is. That's a problem. Brock thinks he can do it. Not only is he smart enough to know what he needs to do, he thinks he can. But in reality, physically, he cannot. And that's a problem. Because if he just played within himself, even if he knew what he should do, even if he knew if he had all the physical traits in the world, he knew I should do this, but I can't. I'm physically unable to do that. He probably would be fine. But Brock's greatest attribute is also his biggest weakness is the fact that he is such a competitor and has such a strong belief in himself that he believes he can do all those things even when he can't. That's why he tries to make throws that he's not capable of making. That's why he throws some of the interceptions that he makes. I don't believe that he made necessarily a bad decision because he made the wrong read. He made a bad decision because he thought he was capable of making a play that he's not capable of making. And you can't take that out of a player. I don't care who his coach is, whether it's Kyle, Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, Bill Belichick. I don't care who it is. You're not going to be able to coach that confidence out of him. And if you were able to do that, then you lose the player that you lose whatever little bit of goodness you have with him. So the last thing you would want to do is coach that confidence out of him. But with him having that problem, he's going to lose you games. And very rarely is he going to win them. Brock Purdy is not the type of player that is going to win you games. You can win games with Brock Purdy. You can jump out to leads. He can get you a lead. He can do that. And once he has a lead and your defense is elite and your defense is playing on top of their game, he can keep the lead. But as soon as you need him to win the game, he's not going to do it. I'm not saying he'll never get one, but he will lose far more than he will win. And that's a problem. And here's the conundrum with Brock Purdy. If he didn't have that mentality that he can do it, he wouldn't be a quarter of the player that he is now. He is as good as he is now because he has that belief in himself. But the fact that he has that belief in himself is what is going to lead him to lose so many games. And it really sucks. It really sucks for him. It really sucks for us as 49er fans because, man, if he had even just a 2% stronger arm, he would really be something. And that's the part that really stinks is, so many of his balls just hang up. He I think he tries to put so much on him because he knows that he can't just with the flick of a wrist that a lot of his balls sail on him. And when he tries to throw them into tight windows that hard, especially when he has pressure and he knows he needs to put a little bit more on it because he's throwing off his back foot, he sails balls and they get picked. He's been lucky on some of these ducks that he's thrown, like the one he threw to Pearsall. He was so wide open it didn't matter. But he gets lucky on a lot of those balls because they stay up there for so long. And it really sucks for us as 49er fans because if his arm was just a little bit stronger, he would be an elite franchise quarterback. But it's not, and it's never going to be. And who knows now? He's got, I think what I've seen on Twitter, he's got a nerve issue in his elbow. Let's hope that it's something that just goes away in a couple weeks. But is this going to be a reoccurring issue? I mean, is he going to get hit in the elbow, week 4 of next season and have the same thing where he can't throw the ball again for a few weeks? So it's a really scary proposition when you think about paying this guy, 200 to $350 million. Like that's that's a scary. You're basically mortgaging your future on everything that I just explained. And to me, that's something that's pretty frightening, and I feel super bad because, like I said, I think that Brock Purdy's a guy that deserves. Man, you could tell he works so hard. You can tell he cares, and if there's ever a guy that you root to be that guy, it's him. But it's just not in such his life. You know what I mean? Um, Growing up, I wanted nothing more than to play professional basketball. Basketball was my first love growing up. I literally played basketball every single day for hours before I went to school. I would get off of school and I would play basketball until my mom made me go inside and eat. I would go back outside and play basketball, and I'd play basketball until my mom made me go to bed. That was my entire childhood. And it was my mission that I was going to play pro ball. Well, you know what? Life had different ideas for me. Obviously, I'm not a professional basketball player, never even came close to sniffing it. And so, man, like I get it when somebody wants something so bad, and I can tell that Brock does. I can tell that he wants this. I can tell that he cares. I can tell he's a competitor. That I can see that he has the fire inside of him to do this. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't have what it takes. Mentally, he does. He is beyond smart enough to be an elite quarterback. He may be one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL. He knows where to go with the ball. He knows what to do. And I know I'm just repeating what I said a minute ago, but I can't state that enough. He knows what he's supposed to do. And he has optimal belief in himself. You can see it. It's all over him. He doesn't get rattled. He knows in his heart that he can make those throws, but he can't. His body severely disagrees with him, and he's not going to be able to. With the fact that he's having issues with that throwing arm again, in my opinion, that arm is only going to get weaker. I think last season was the best it was going to be. I really believe that going forward, it's only going to get worse, and that sucks for this guy. But The first thing has to be the organization, and they cannot make a decision like that. It will set this team back years if they pay him that way. Because here's the thing, if they're going to get Brock that money, they got to rebuild this defense to being a number 1 to 3 defense in the NFL, elite. They have to load talent up around him, and they have to blow people out every week because you can't put the game in his hands. And you can't expect to go into a Super Bowl because Super Bowls aren't blowouts. You know, I know the history of our team. We've had a couple of them, you know, but Brock Purdy's not Joe Montana and Brock Purdy's not Steve Young. So at some point, we're going to need our quarterback to carry us to that victory in that big game in the Super Bowl. And Brock's not that guy. It's too bad. I truly feel bad for the guy. I really, really, really do feel bad for him. You know, on to the next guy that I would blame for this loss would be Jake Moody. And you know, here's the thing, like my friend, I've been telling my friend Jesse, I'm like, bro, this is why you can't draft a kicker in the 3rd round. That was the dumbest, stupidest decision. That was so dumb. And he's like, kickers are important, this and that. You gotta draft them. No. You can get a Jake Moody level kicker in high school. And you can get a top NFL kicker undrafted. You don't draft them. So I've been ragging on Jake Moody all year. All year. You know, in fact, when this game kicked off, I told Jesse, I was like, bro, I better not see Jake Moody this whole game. We go for it every 4th down. I don't care where we're at. And we go for 2-point conversions and let the punter kick off. But man, by the end of that game, by the last extra point he missed, and then and then especially when he kicked that onside kick basically straight out of bounds, I was like, damn, that poor kid, man. He just ended his career. Like, that sucks. You know, I feel bad for guys when they F up to that level. That sucks, man. It was bad enough. I thought there was a pretty good chance that Jake Moody wasn't going to be back next season before this game. Now there's not a doubt in my mind Jake Moody won't be on this team next season, and I'm not so sure anyone's even going to give him a look. I would say there's one coach in the NFL who might be able to fix Jake Moody, and that's Jim Harbaugh. And not just because Jim had him in college, because if there's one coach out there who can just pump confidence into a person that's been beat down and kicked and just dragged through the mud and had their confidence just shot to shit, it's that guy. So if there's one guy who could save Jake Moody's career, it's Jim Harbaugh. So if I was Moody, I would be begging the Niners to release me. And I would have my agent begging the Chargers to sign me if I was Jake Moody. But that guy is done on the 49ers. And if he's not, holy cow, I don't know what it's going to – then John and Kyle both need to be fired. That's crazy. But I feel for him. I feel for him. As much as I'm a Niners fan, and I would probably be more pissed and have less care if today's game mattered, but it didn't. It didn't matter at all. So, you know, in the long run, now that it's done and it's over with, probably good we lost. We get a little bit better draft position. But so because of that, the fact that it didn't matter, the fact that in some ways you can say it benefited us, I do have a little bit of heart for him. I do have a little bit of empathy for the poor guy. But man, that sucks. He's got to go though. Let's not get it twisted. He's got to go. Now, I'm gonna end this with giving one guy some love. I could give Bosa some love because Bosa had a hell of a game. But my thing is like, damn, bro, it should have been all year. It should have been all year with Bosa. And Kittle did Kittle things. I mean, Kittle deserves love every game because Kittle balls out every game. But Ricky Pearsall, damn, it would have been nice to see that all season. And like I said earlier, that just frustrates me so much more with Kyle because Pearsall got so many touches that would generally go to Debo, except for he did so much more with them than Devo ever would, at least this season. And so my thing is, why couldn't Kyle do this? It just, I don't know. It blows my mind. So I want to give Ricky his flowers a little bit. I mean, he had an amazing game today. I mean, it was so impressive the way he played today. What do you have? 8 for 141 and a touchdown. 8 catches on 10 targets. That's amazing. That's a great game. Even Jacob Cowan got in there today, and I knew as soon as he got that penalty, I was like, "Well, that's the last we'll see of him today." Considering the fact that our defense couldn't force a punt the whole damn game, so it is what it is. But anyways, guys, I'm going to cut it short a little bit tonight. That's going to be the show for today. Just wanted to kind of give my thoughts. I will reiterate one more time. Kyle needs to go. Jake Moody needs to go, and we cannot pay Brock. So I will be back a little bit later on in the week, guys. Until then, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.